11-year-old Mac White visited Daley Plaza the day after JFK's assassination with his father, a local newspaper editor who came equipped with a camera. When they arrived, Mac noticed two men standing on the Daltex building fire escape, one of whom was looking through a scoped rifle mounted on a tripod. "Look," Mac said to his father while pointing. "I guess they're detectives," said his father. "They're probably checking to see if there was another shooter." The idea of another shooter had not yet occurred to Mac. Later he learned the two men could have been journalists using the gun as a prop for a photo of Elm Street that appeared the following week in the Saturday Evening Post. Or maybe they were something else entirely. In the years that follow, evidence emerged that there could have been a shooter in the Daltex building, as well as evidence for shooters all over the plaza, including the grassy knoll. Mac wrote much later. Like many Americans, he remains haunted by the case. The total number of shots is a great mystery, but it can be solved. The locations of the shooters can be established at this point. Johnny Roselli was positioned in a storm drain inside the triple underpass, and his only shot entered JFK's throat. There may be another shooter somewhere in the Daltex building, either on the roof or the fire escape, or deep inside some west-facing window behind a blind, or perhaps on the roof of the depository. A shooter from the rear hit JFK in the back, and also Governor Connally, and at least one rear shot missed everything and hit the curb, wounding James Tague. This means rear shots were fired a minimum of 3 times, while the other shooters seem to have only fired once. We know that the kill shot came from the knoll, and it seems to have been the last and adds up to a minimum of 5 shots. We just don't know if all rear shots came from the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository. Because 2 rifles were discovered inside the depository, a Carcano and a Mauser. It's possible both could have been fired, one from the cypress nest and the other from the window farthest east, or perhaps even from the roof, both of which would have offered better locations from which to fire into the plaza. My best guess is there were 4 snipers, and 2 of them had to be in the rear because Kennedy and Connally were hit almost simultaneously. That could not have been fired by the same bolt-action rifle. According to Dave Powers, who was riding in the trailing vehicle, the first 2 came close together, followed by several-second pause and the unmistakable headshot that sounded like a watermelon exploding. Powers described a bang, bang, bang pattern, while other witnesses heard the opposite, a bang, 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 with the last 2 coming very close together. Murders leave immense telepathic disturbances in their wake. Although Jackie Kennedy reacted instinctively by moving to retrieve JFK's skull fragment from the trunk where it landed, she had no memory of doing so in testifying before the Warren Commission. Yet there are multiple photos and films showing her reaching across the trunk. This is why the testimony of those nearest the scene is often somewhat unreliable. There had to have been 5 distinct shots that day, but some overlapped and/or may have emanated from a weapon with a sound suppressor. Many witnesses heard 3 shots, which meant 2 must have overlapped or been taken as a firecracker or motorcycle backfire instead of a rifle shot. The difficulty is the pattern of the shots seemed to vary depending on the witness's location in the plaza. In 1977, a cartridge was discovered by an air conditioning mechanic on the roof of the Daltex building with crimped edges, suggesting it had been hand-loaded or used in conjunction with a sabot, something deployed to fire lower caliber bullets from a higher caliber weapon. Strangely, one of the Carcano shell casings found on the 6th floor had a crimp, according to Roger Craig, the first policeman on the scene. The last federal investigation determined in 1978 that 4 shots were fired, one that missed, one at Zapruder frame 224, one at Zapruder frame 313, immediately followed by the 4th shot. The Warren report's published FBI analysis of the bullet that wounded eyewitness James Tague originated from a weapon that did not fire full metal jacket ammo, unlike the Carcano carbine found in the Texas School Book Depository that only fired full metal jacket bullets. This alone should have been enough evidence to prove a conspiracy. In 1987, John Rademacher found a shell casing buried underground near the stockade fence in Daley Plaza. Through a complex set of circumstances, this shell would soon be linked to a jailed and convicted assassin connected to the Chicago outfit named James Files, who claimed he was the grassy knoll gunman and had left his shell on the stockade fence. Files also indicated he had a habit of biting his spent bullets because he liked the taste of gunpowder, and when you know it, teeth marks were quickly found on the Rademacher cartridge. Since there is intense effort to plant false evidence and false confessions into this story, it's unlikely, in my opinion, Files is telling the truth, even though major parts of his story do correspond to something close to the truth. It's far more likely the grassy knoll assassin fired once and never ejected the spent cartridge, much less put it between his teeth before setting it on top of the fence for all to see. The only shells left at the scene were the 3 intentionally planted on the 6th floor to incriminate Oswald. The main purpose of all these multiple fake confessions through the decade seems to be to engineer fakers into achieving widespread acceptance inside the research community before exposing them as frauds. Not only do these confessions put a cloud of mud in the investigative waters, they help brand the research community as conspiracy crackpots. I call these ops time bombs salted in a rabbit hole.